Well, hello. This is Brian Richards again, and welcome to day 3 of the 1 to 50 challenge series. Now, I'm not going to spend a lot of time in introduction today. This is a very meaty session we're going to have together. And what I've just decided to do is break it down into 2 segments. I'm going to do an initial overview where I cover the main points without digging into the specific detail of a lot of the processes. I've created explainer videos for all of those processes, and I'm going to go through those in the second part, which is optional. So if you'd like to stay with me, I will play each of those explainer videos, and then I will speak to them where I feel might be necessary to string the whole exercise together for day 3. But the initial introduction, where I just provide the overview without going into that detail, shouldn't last more than about 10 minutes or so, would be my guess. So we'll see how we go. I'm just going to share my screen. There we are. So here's our big picture of the 1 to 50 challenge. This is our roadmap, and I won't go back over all of the introductory elements here. We've covered that in day 1 and very briefly yesterday on day 2. What I will do now is press ahead with day 3 and just reflect on the fact that what we've covered in day 1 and day 2 is essentially about Searchy as a very valuable tool, in fact, a breakthrough tool in how we deliver our content with some tremendous searching capability, as well as automatic transcriptions and a range of other functions that we addressed quite fully on day 2. So that sets us up now to dig into how to process a video using another tool, repurpose.io. And so our basic objective for day 3, step 1 of this process, starting with a live stream video or a recorded video that's been uploaded to our Facebook page, because everything is starting on our Facebook page, as we'll see in a moment. We'll then transform that in this step 1 today on day 3 into 47 items, and they include horizontal, vertical, square formats and different durations that are relevant for each platform, so that we can just do it once. In this case, it's a video source content, and then repurpose that across multiple platforms. And then we'll pick this up tomorrow on day 4, and we'll take this further with I'm really looking forward to day 4. It's one of my favorite topics. So we'll save some of the really some of the personal materials that I have enjoyed for a number of years now. I've got a few surprises in store for you, some very welcome surprises. I hope you'll agree. So what we're going to do now is go across into our day 3 strategy map. And this is what we're going to address. And this is why I do want to allow enough time for those who want to stay with me to go through this, because for each of these elements, I have explainer videos. And so when I created all these and I added it up, it's a little under an hour, I think, in total. And that's why I thought I probably need to break this up. You'll have these, once these strategy maps are available, I'll shoot them through into your free StratMapper account, which was hopefully a nice surprise that I'm giving a free StratMapper platform user account that's worth a minimum of $500 per annum. I'm going to give you a lifetime account, and you'll have these strategy maps like you see here sitting on your account, and I'll be able to update them from time to time and so on. So that will be coming through. But if you didn't want to wait for that to happen, because I've got a lot of work to do still for day 4, it may be after we complete the formal part of this series tomorrow on day 4 that I can, because I'm going to create a special page for you to go and register your user account, and then the strategy maps will be in there. So I've still got a little bit of setup to make that happen. If you prefer not to wait, then you'll be able to simply stay once I complete this initial overview, and I'm going to go through each of these steps today with you, so you have that option as well. So here's what it looks like. We want to make sure that we get our foundation steps right, because the work that we do right up front in this initial preparation step up here, we want to get that right, because that will then flow through and reward us many times over, as we'll see as we go through the remaining steps. And the preparation here involves uploading a video or going live, a Facebook Live, to our Facebook page. Now, we could start this in a number of places, but it's quite convenient to do it from a Facebook page. And so that's where we'll start. What we then do is start working with this excellent tool, repurpose.io, and we're working with the horizontal format. And we're particularly, because it's already on Facebook, we're going to then be transferring that across to YouTube in a seamless, automated way. And the whole point of this is we set things up, then things just happen. We're trying to maximize the automation potential that's available in a number of these powerful tools. Then what we're going to do is start working with the square format. So up here, we're working with the full video. Now we're going to start working with clips or snippets. And some of these platforms have tight duration restrictions. For example, Twitter has 2 minutes 20 as a maximum video length. So we need to not only fit within those duration limits, others are 10 minutes. We also need to use the format that presents the content in the best way possible on that particular platform. And it just happens that a number of these square format tends to work best. We also don't leave vertical out, because Instagram TV, even though we can do horizontal these days, vertical is still quite often the preferred format there for a lot of people. So we can do square or format, but I'm going to demonstrate using vertical with IGTV in particular. Then we'll have a look at using the same tool, being able to convert our video content into audio. And in one of our bonus days, we'll come back and do it in the opposite direction, audio to video. But here we're going video to audio and being able to integrate with a podcast host and getting our video content onto a directory automatically with each video we want to include in this process. I'll jump over here. Then we're going to step beyond that and start getting a little bit more adventurous, and we'll use another tool here to convert our, initially we'll take a video, we'll create a video post, but then we'll convert it into PDF, we'll take transcripts, we'll also create ebooks and dynamic flipbooks. And these are even more visually engaging in many ways. So we'll get to that. And then we also have a segment here on Facebook stories and Instagram stories. So that's essentially the ground we're covering. And when you add all that up, as I did, it comes up to 47 different versions. And then tomorrow we'll take this further. And of course, I was fairly confident we're going to be able to meet our 1 to 50 challenge. So that's the ground we're going to cover. How we get there is covered in each of these explainer videos. So all you need to do is click on the play button. It'll bring up a video and you'll be able to go through that. And there are, for a few of these, there's an additional note as well. So if you see a little number there, you'll know there's a note attached to that particular explainer video. So that's all I'll cover at this point by way of the overview. If you are happy to wait for the strategy maps to become available to you, you'll be able to get a version exactly as you see it here in your account. It'll be a couple of days away, I estimate. And at that point, you'll be able to do just like I did there. Go in, press play, watch the video, and look at any notes. There's only a couple of notes, but they're relevant to Instagram in particular. And you'll have all the detail and so on you'll need for day 3, taking a video and converting it into all of these formats. If you'd like to stay with me now, what I'm going to do is go through each video in turn. So what we'll do for now, those who are staying with me, we'll begin with the preparation stage. And as I said just now, what we are doing here is starting on a Facebook page, and I'll explain more in our first video. Our first task is to ensure that the video that we're about to work with is on our Facebook page. So I'm looking at my Facebook page, and if it looks a little bit different from yours, it's because I manage my page in the Facebook Business Manager. Most of the functions. Our first task is to ensure that the video that we're about to work with is on our Facebook page. So I'm looking at my Facebook page, and if it looks a little bit different from yours, it's because I manage my page in the Facebook Business Manager. Most of the functionality should be fairly similar if you don't do the same with yours. And now I've uploaded a video already to save time. If I hadn't have done that, you could have simply created a post and done it through there. You could have come over into the videos section and uploaded a video through there. Now, because I've already done it, I'm going to go straight over into the publishing tools area. I'll go over into the video library, and here's our video. Now, this is a copy of day one of our live stream series. I thought I'd use some very recent content as the demo content. Now, I'm not going to be posting this necessarily for real, though. I'll be coming back and repurposing much of this content after I've completed the series. I've simply got too much going on while I'm running the series and getting things organized for each day. But I will come back and do this for real shortly after I finish the series. But for the moment, we'll use day one's content as our demo content. And so I'm just going to go in here into edit video. And there's a few key settings. Now, there's some very obvious things that everyone has to do when we're talking about video content. Now, we're doing this on the Facebook page, but here's where the thinking associated with the content repurposing comes in. We want to think ahead. We want to ensure that anything we're doing now happens within the context of just do it once. I mean, that's the fundamental driving motto, if you like, or principle behind content repurposing. And by using the appropriate technology, we can take the work that we're doing now. If we spend a little bit of time just getting it right, that will then flow through into other platforms without us needing to redo the work later on. And we'll see how that works in practice. So the normal things that people would do in any case is you would want, this is normal copywriting, you would want a short, punchy title, something that grabs the attention. And similarly with the description, it needs to be, for this purpose, fairly meaty. I could even have another paragraph in here, and it might be even a little bit stronger. And that's what we normally do to try and get things right. We get a good title, a good description. The third element that's quite common practice, of course, that just about everyone realizes and understands, is we need a fairly compelling thumbnail. Now, this isn't a fairly compelling thumbnail. It's not too bad. At least it's visually appealing, but it doesn't have a strong call to action in terms of a hook or an angle. It says roughly what it's about, but it could be a little bit stronger. And I'm not spending a lot of time on this right now to get that thumbnail probably in the strongest place it could be. And if we're doing this around particular topics, which we normally would, then we might even go to a bit of extra trouble to make it very specific to the topic or the episode. If this were a podcast episode, for example, to just make it a little bit more individualized for that particular episode or this particular video. It'll serve our purposes here, though, for the demo. So this is what most people do work on, and that's fine. What we also need to do, though, really to put ourselves in the best position, is to get these extra time-stamped segments out of the video. If we do it now, we won't have to do it later. So we can do it once, and we'll see how that flows through. What I've done here, I've just kind of arbitrarily chosen some times. These are the starting times for these segments, and I've given them short summary titles. And I've chosen 5. Now, why 5? It's a pretty good number because in this, I think from memory, is around 49 minutes or roughly around that. Half an hour to 40 minutes, you can normally get 5 really, really good 1 to 2 minute segments, and they can then stand alone and go out onto the web and do some of the promotional work for us. 1 to 2 minutes is pretty much ideal. And so what this is doing, this is saying where those 1 to 2 minute segments are. We haven't given the end time. We'll see how that comes in a moment, but we've given the starting time, and that's good enough for the moment. And the final item we really want to do, if we didn't have the benefit of something like Searchy, is we'd want to get the captions done. Now we can, if we wanted to, we could rely upon Facebook to do it. The auto-generate has been done in this case. You definitely want to go and review and edit if you're relying on Facebook. I find it's not reliable at all for all their resources. For me, I find this is fairly poor quality, and there are other options. There's Rev, Otter, a whole number of things. But we, of course, also have the benefit of Searchy, which has probably the best engine on the marketplace for doing transcriptions and getting these captions right and producing the SRT file. And they make it very easy. For example, actually, I've uploaded, if we just have a look here, the first 2 days of this live stream series are already sitting on the website. They were just uploaded automatically once I'd completed each day's session over the last couple of days. They were automatically uploaded, brought in here. The transcriptions are done, and I would simply, certainly within half an hour of the completion of the session, yesterday and the day before, I could have come in here and simply downloaded the SRT file and uploaded it into Facebook. I won't take time to do that now, but Searchy makes it particularly easy. No waiting time, no sending things away and waiting for it to come back. I could just, if it were a Facebook Live, I could simply come in here. If it was an uploaded video, the same thing. Searchy just makes that immediately available, basically. So that's what we need to do with the video. If we get those settings right, if we spend that little bit of extra time, particularly putting those timestamp segments on and the captions, then we are well placed to move on to the next step. Okay. Now, I suspect I've got a particularly sensitive studio mic, and I'm sorry about the little bit of rustling from my shirt or something. I've just turned my mic down a little bit. I recorded these videos prior to that, though, so apologies in advance. And we'll see, I just turned the video, my system volume down a little bit, just try and make it a little bit easier on the ear. So there we have our foundation step. We're getting our video into the Facebook page, and you'll see now as we go through the remaining steps, we'll continually draw on that one piece of content, again, within the principle of just do it once. So we're working with one video piece of content on the Facebook page, and then we're going to see what we can do with it. We'll now move on to our next step, and we'll look at YouTube within the horizontal box here. Let's see what we can do there. Okay, our next job here is to take this horizontal original video, the full video, and get it across to YouTube. And now we're going to start employing a second tool in this series, repurpose.io. Now this is a very useful tool, particularly in terms of moving content from one platform to another and changing the shape of the format of that content in the process. So starting as horizontal, we can change that to square and vertical, depending on the platform. With YouTube, of course, we're going horizontal to horizontal, so that's fine. And we're going to transfer the full video across with some of the settings that we've already put in place. Now, within repurpose.io, we use these things called workflows. And before we create a workflow, we connect the relevant channels, the input channels and the output channels. I've already done that to save some time. So let's go across into our workflows area. And I'll start creating some new workflows here. Now let's call this Facebook to YouTube. Again, just to save a bit of time, I'll abbreviate things a little bit. And so where we're coming from is a Facebook video. This was an uploaded video, not a Facebook Live in this case. It was originally a Facebook Live, but I uploaded a copy of it. So it's a Facebook uploaded video. If I was using the original source Facebook Live, I would have gone to that part of the Facebook page. And we need to go to a page. I could have drawn this originally from a group if that's where the content was, but we've started with the page, and it's the Resolute Media page. We're going to upload the video, and we're going to use the full version of that video at this point. The output, we're going to go across to the connected YouTube account and the channel that I have on that. And I have set up a playlist, and it's very helpful to use a playlist rather than individual standalone videos, because when you have a collection, if it's appropriate, if it's relevant, when you have those videos sitting in a playlist, it makes it easier for your viewer, your visitor to your content, to see the other videos on that playlist. It helps with ranking, but also just the convenience of helping your visitors find your other content. So we're going to upload it into this playlist I've created. So we'll create the workflow. And it's sitting here. And what we want to do, we want to go and let's view the videos. And before we publish or do anything like that, we really want to check these settings to get them right. Now, we're not going to resize the video at this stage in the process, and we're not going to embed Facebook captions in the video. In other words, we're not going to burn captions in the video. Now, in the previous video, I said I wasn't uploading captions. I, in fact, thought about it later, and I went and downloaded the Searchy SRT file, and I did upload them into Facebook. So, but I didn't clean them up. They are just unedited, just for the sake of having the captions file in the system from Searchy. If I were doing this for real, I would have spent a few minutes just cleaning up to make sure that it was as accurate as possible. In any case, though, we don't want to burn the captions into the video itself, but we do want to pass the SRT file across to YouTube to help it in its coming up with the most accurate captions for when they put the captions on the video. And that's why we don't want to burn it in from Facebook, because YouTube will do this process. We are going to assist them with the SRT file. We'll see how we do that in a moment. At this stage, we want to leave that disabled. And we could add an intro file or an outro file if we want to. We're not auto-publishing just at this stage. I'm going to keep it fairly simple. We're doing this manually. It would be good, though, to have a call to action. I've just created a simple little call to action here. Two line call to action, very simple. Again, I'd do something a bit better if this were for real. I also would add keywords, very important. YouTube is, the last I heard, the second largest search engine behind Google that owns YouTube, and you would certainly want to make the most of that if having your content found on YouTube is important. We want it public. I'm doing primarily how-to videos. If we had a good thumbnail, which we talked about last time, we would certainly want to upload the thumbnail that we've prepared to YouTube so that can be used. And in terms of uploading the subtitle file, yes, we want that on as well, because I've specifically brought the Searchy SRT file in, so it could be passed across as the most accurate version, particularly if I had taken the time to edit it and get it all nicely cleaned up. So we'll save those settings. And that's how we want things to be. And the CC is suggesting that, yes, I know that we've got an SRT file in place. So we'll publish that. We get one more opportunity to check the content, that it's exactly how we want it to be. All that's fine. You can see our call to action there has been added to the beginning, which is best practice for your description. The only thing I haven't done in this case is add keywords, which I would do in normal practice. Okay. And we'll say publish now. Now again, normally, because we are wanting to generate content that we can pre-schedule, this is normally the way. When we move forward and we talk about using those 5 segments as standalone content, we want to be scheduling, let's say, Monday through Friday. It's another reason why we choose 5 sub-segments, so that we've got enough content for each day, Monday through Friday. It works out pretty nicely. Here we're working with the full video initially, and I'm just saying schedule now so that we can see what it looks like at the other end. This normally only takes a few minutes. It's all done, but of course it'll take a little bit of time to upload to YouTube. So once that's done, we'll go across to YouTube and just see what it looks like over there. Well, here we are on our YouTube channel. The video has been uploaded. It didn't take too long. And if we just go have a good look at the settings here. So here's all the information that we created: the headline, the description, the call to action that we added, the thumbnail that we passed across, and here it is sitting in the playlist that we requested as well. Now, if we want to go and have a look at this in the wild, so to speak, I'll just stop this, pop down here. You'll see there's our call to action, but also these timestamps now have been picked up by YouTube, recognized as timestamps. And if we wanted to go to this first segment, that will take us, not the most attractive look, straight to that position on the video. So we've been able to find our way through this first step of transferring across to YouTube. Let's move on now to the next step in the process. So there we go. So we've covered horizontal. Now what I'd like to do is move across into vertical, where we're looking primarily at Instagram TV. Now this introduces the situation where Instagram is particularly problematic in terms of integrations. So we've got an interim step involving Dropbox. So let's see how that works. We're now going to move on to the option for Instagram TV, and here we're going to work with the vertical format. Even though horizontal has been available for a little while, vertical is still the preferred form. A new workflow. By the way, we'll save Instagram for when we're working with square formats. So we're going to be going from our Facebook page to IGTV in particular. It's a Facebook video from a specific page, Resolute Media. But this time we're going to be working with snippets rather than the full video, because we have these 1 to 2 minute segments we want to work with. And Instagram TV has a maximum of 10 minutes in any case, so we couldn't use the full video on this platform. We do need to go via this interim step with Dropbox, because Instagram just generally is very hard to integrate with directly. They have been for some years now, making it very difficult for software developers. And so we've got this a bit of a workaround. So we're going to go to Dropbox. We want to use a specific folder for this work, so that we have a content repurpose work folder already set up. Otherwise we could create one just as our specific holding place for these segments. So there it is in place, and we're ready now to create our workflow. So this will go away, hook everything up. It does take just a little while with Dropbox, and there we go. So we can now go and view the videos that we have available to us, and because we said snippets, repurpose.io has put a few suggestions in place using, as we can see here, a default time frame of 30 seconds. Now that may not suit us because we may prefer to finish at a very specific time for each of these 5 segments rather than have something by default. That's what I would want to do, so it stops at an appropriate time. So let's have a look at our settings. And this time we don't want to just leave the original video as is. We actually want to change it to this vertical video format for Instagram TV. And if we wanted to, we could change a lot of these default colors. We have a progress bar, for example. We could change that. We could add a text watermark. We could put our website. We could put our Instagram ID. I might just put the website URL. And because I did go back and upload the searchy SRT file, even though I didn't clean it up, just for the sake of demonstration, I'm going to say that's enable. So I did upload that into the Facebook page. That can now come across from the Facebook page. It's the searchy one. As I said, I would have tidied that up and that would have been as accurate as we get it. And I'm going to enable that now so that they can come across and be included with the work that we're doing here. If I weren't doing that, if I weren't putting captions below the video, then I could have a default subheadline here with some kind of call to action instead, and that would be what would show. I could add an intro and outro file. Now, because we're only working with 1 to 2 minutes max normally, we don't have a lot of room to work, but if we are going to do it, maybe a call to action right at the end, 10-15 seconds, could be quite appropriate. Just for this demonstration, I'm not going to be auto-publishing. I'm doing everything manually. And the final thing I really want to do here, we won't worry so much about email notifications for our purpose. I'm going to change that to 2 minutes for the default. So we get a bit closer to what it would be, but I would still manually go in and adjust this. So let's save that. And that should be reflected here now. We've got 2 minutes by default. But again, what I would do, I would go in and edit this so that as I'm looking at this, it wouldn't just go by these 2 minutes. I can change these little bars here, or just manually go in and edit the times and get this exactly right to where I want it to be. So let's say I have done that and I updated that. And I would do that for each of the 5 so that each of them, the most accurate I can get them, and then I would publish them. This CC is telling us, yes, I know we've got an SRT file here and we can use captions in this circumstance. And if we didn't want to use these default time frames, or even these 5 here, I could actually go in and add another snippet at this point if I wanted to, just by manually going in and choosing a time frame that I wanted to add into the equation. Let's work with this first one though. 1 video, 50 pieces of content. We'll publish that. We get one more look at the default settings. Okay, so that's our title. Are you happy enough with that? Is there an extra space? Yes, it was. And we are going to use the captions across from Facebook. Okay. And again, what I would normally do here is I would probably schedule this out. If I've got 5 segments and I'm planning this for the next week, Monday through Friday, I would put Monday's date, let's say, for this segment. But for our purpose, I'm going to publish it now. And I'll just give that a second or two. Okay, but that only took a couple of minutes. Everything's been processed, and we can go via this little eyeball across directly into our Dropbox folder, into that specific folder that we wanted to hold these. And there's our vertical format video ready to go across into Instagram TV. Now it's done what we asked it to do. There's our headline that we wanted for this specific segment, this short segment.
So from the point of view
there's
of the
our video.
pandemic,
Just turn the volume off. You'll see it's coming up the captions because that's what we wanted it to do, rather than just like a static call to action. We didn't clean it up, but for demonstration purposes, that's okay. There's our little progress bar. There's our watermark. So it's ready to go across into IGTV. However, we need to go via our hard drive because we're going to use a facility called Facebook Creator Studio. So I have already just downloaded this prior to coming back. So it's ready on the hard drive. I'm going to go across into Creator Studio, and I can see an Instagram icon because I've got a business profile. If you don't have a business profile or a creator account on Instagram, then you may not see the icon. You simply do a quick change. It takes no time at all. It's no cost, and then you have this facility available. And so in this side of things, on the Instagram side, we're going to create a post on Instagram TV. And to do that, we need to upload our file, which is here. In the format that we want, we can add a title. And I wouldn't normally do a long description on IGTV. People don't tend to read it too much. I wouldn't even bother too much around getting too fancy with the thumbnail here. And I would make sure that I have this tick, the share preview to feed. That'll then highlight the first 15, 20, might be up to 30 seconds, something like that, so that people can be engaged with your content and get drawn in to watch the rest of it. So that looks like it's pretty well ready to go. We can publish that. And again, we might be scheduling as an alternative as well. And we just give that a short moment. And there it is. All set to go, either published immediately or, of course, as I said, we would normally probably have scheduled this in advance. And then we would do the same thing for the other 4 segments. So we would have our week's content ready to go, and there's Instagram TV. Let's move on to the next step. Okay, so let's hop out of here. Shall I just go back now, because we're going to spend a little bit of time in the square format. And what we're going to do with square is we're opting for square for the normal Instagram feed. It also looks great on Twitter, LinkedIn, and we can send our content back. We've got the full video sitting on our Facebook page at the moment, but we can send snippets back. And so out of one long video, we can create a whole lot of little snippets that can continually feature segments out of our content over the course of a week, say. And I'm using 5 clips here, Monday through Friday. It's just a nice kind of way to do things. So what we might do here is actually start with Twitter. Let's see how that looks. Now we're going to upload our video, or at least the segments, to Twitter. And we'll need to use segments to be a new workflow. Just use abbreviations again. Facebook to Twitter. We know we're drawing from our original uploaded video to a Facebook page, so we better specify the right location there. And we're going to be using snippets because of that duration maximum on Twitter. And then we're outputting to the relevant Twitter account that I've already connected. And we'll create our workflow. And these segments are going to be uploaded so they reside natively on the Twitter platform. People will be watching on the platform. They won't just be links or to the original video, for example. And so here is our new workflow. Let's have a look at the segments that have come across. And again, this is the benefit of taking the time to put those timestamps and these short descriptions in the original Facebook page description. It's saving us some time. I would still go the extra step though and edit each of these so that they finish at the exact time that I want them to finish. We notice the captions file has come across from the Facebook page, and the captions file that's come across is the one that I uploaded into Facebook, not the one it generated. I went off to Searchy, downloaded the transcription that was immediately available from doing this original session. And so that's come across with the original video. Now that I'm choosing these segments, it'll choose the captions appropriate to those specific snippets. And the final thing we need to do here before publishing is to make sure we've got the settings just right the way we want them. The first thing we want to do is specify the square format, which is appropriate on Twitter. It looks good on desktop and mobile. We can add a watermark here if we wanted. I'll just add my handle. I could put in my website URL. And for this example, I'm definitely wanting to use the captions so we can see what it looks like on the finished video segment. Otherwise, if I weren't doing that, I'd put in a call to action or something in that subheadline position. I'm not going to add an outro file. In practice, I probably would put a short call to action, say 10-15 seconds maximum. And we won't worry about the rest of the settings here. You'll see this has been now defaulted to the maximum of 2 minutes 20. No, that'd be 140 seconds, but I would go through and specify the exact time frame. So let's save those settings. And we're now ready to publish. And when I click here, we'll get one more opportunity to have a look. And I put an additional space in the original description. I would go back and fix that so it wasn't popping up all the time. And being a tweet, I can call out to people whatever I want to do here as per a normal tweet. Now we can publish this now, but what I would normally do in practice is and choose an appropriate time. I won't go through and actually do this accurately, but I will leave it scheduled, and we'll still be able to go and have a look at the finished product. So when that is finished processing, I'll come back and we'll have a look at what the video actually looks like. So there we go. This only took a little bit over a minute, maybe, and it's scheduled, and so that would go out at the time. Now I'll stop that because it's certainly not ready for a live situation, but we can still go and have a look at what the video actually looks like.
From the point of view of the pandemic.
So I'll turn that volume off, and here we are. It's picked up the final settings. It's added the watermark that I requested it to, and it's gone back and grabbed that appropriate captions file, although it hasn't been cleaned up. But you get the point here. It's got the default colors and so on because I didn't change them. A little progress bar coming across, and there we have it. So I would now go back and I'd do the same thing for those other segments, and we're all ready and organized for the week ahead. Let's go to the next step. We're now going to look at another application of the square format, and in this case it's LinkedIn. And if we want to use this automation technology, then we'll need to go via a company page. And if you don't have a company page, it only takes a couple of minutes to get one set up. We'll come back to that later. I've set one up, and we'll need to create another workflow for this purpose. If we simply wanted to go to our personal profile and not bother with a company page, there is a manual workaround we'll come back to right at the end. So let's get our automation going first. We'll create a new workflow, Facebook to LinkedIn, and this will be going to a company page, although there is also a personal feed option. We'll see that in a moment. So we're coming from our now familiar Facebook video, from the relevant Facebook page, and again we need to work with snippets. LinkedIn also has a max of 10 minutes, and our settings here and the whole setup is very similar to Twitter. that we have already looked at. If you haven't looked at the Twitter video first, it may be helpful because it's really quite similar. In this case, I've connected LinkedIn and we need to go via a company page. I've only got the one in place for this purpose, which is this Resolute Media site. That's the relevant one, so we've chosen that, and we'll create our workflow. And we'll go and see what videos we have available. And again, this should be looking quite familiar. And as I've previously mentioned, I would take the time personally to go through and make sure all these end times are appropriate for each segment. What we also need to do, of course, is get the overall settings right. And again, we're working with Square for LinkedIn. We could change some of these settings. We could add a watermark. I think I'll add a website URL this time. And let's use our captions. If we've captions and we've taken the time to get them as accurate as possible, they are better to use normally than just a call to action subheadline, because people can then watch you without the audio on. It's quite convenient. We won't worry about intro, outro files. The one thing I should mention with these files, depending on the format, whether it's horizontal, vertical, or square, we just need to make sure that the intro, outro obviously is in that same format. Everything else here is similar to what we've seen, except for this extra option here, which is share video to the personal feed. I'm going to leave that off for the moment because this is a demo video and I don't really want this to be going to my personal feed on my personal profile. But if it were live, I would normally want to do that. So I get that extra distribution to all of my connections and they can see that status update. Here I'll leave it off though because it's only demo and I don't want to confuse them. As I say, though, if for some reason you didn't want to go via the company page, we can in a moment look at a manual workaround to get it just through to the personal profile alone. So everything there is now look okay. We'll save that. And we also notice that captions files come across, so that will now feature in this video segment. We'll publish that. We'll get one more look, and this time I am going to take out that extra space in the title itself. Because we are going to use captions from Facebook, but because this is, again, we would really only want what's relevant to this segment, because we have 5 segments and they're only talking about one element of the content itself. We could be a bit more descriptive if we wanted to, but we'll leave that for the moment. And then we will schedule this, and I'm not going to be too precise because this is a demo, but I'll just leave it at whatever that comes up, and I'll put that in place, and I'll come back when that is finished, and we'll have another look at the finished product ready to go through to our LinkedIn company page. And if we had opted, it would also have gone through to the personal feed. Back in a moment. That didn't take long at all. It's finished publishing, it's ready to go, it's scheduled for whatever the designated time is. We would have done this in actuality, and we can go and have a look at the video.
See, from the point of view of the pen.
So there's our familiar Square content now. We've got our default settings for the colors and so on, our progress bar. We've added a website URL in the watermark, and that's all lined up, ready to go. And we do the same thing for the other 4 segments. We would have a week's worth of content all lined up and ready, scheduled. So that's the automated part. If we didn't want to go to the trouble, even though it's only 1 or 2 minutes of setup, in fact, I can show you that personal profile here. I can go into this work section, say create a company page. In my case, small business, add a few items there, and that's it. You have a company page within a couple of minutes. However, if we didn't want to go to that trouble and just quickly upload into our personal profile, I added a couple of notes here just so that we can have a look at that. What we would need to do is create the workflow and repurpose still, so that it reformats it into the square shape. That workflow, in this case, they would go via the Dropbox, as we've done previously. We can nominate for captions to be included. We then download the video from the Dropbox, and then we just simply upload that snippet into LinkedIn. So that's another option. Either way, we have LinkedIn covered. We now have another application for our square format, and that's Facebook. Now, we could post our content to a Facebook page or a Facebook group. For our demonstration, we'll repost back to the same Facebook page, but now we're going to do it with the snippets. So we've got an additional 5 pieces of content on that same page. So we'll create a new workflow, and we'll be going Facebook to Facebook, and normally I would provide far more description so I could clearly see what this workflow is all about. Our source video is, of course, our same demonstration piece of content, and we're going to be working with snippets, and we will repost back to that same page. I'd have the group option as well if I wanted to, but let's go back to the same Facebook page. By connecting our WAV we get access to all of our pages and groups that we're an admin for, of course, as per normal practice. And this should start looking familiar. So we won't go through all the explanation of this. Again, we've done it elsewhere. Our settings, we're still working with our square format. I'll just use the website URL again. We'll use captions again. And everything else here we've seen before. So we'll save all that. And then we'll publish. We get one more look at our content. We're working with just the segment. So we would keep our description here just to that segment. We'll schedule. And again, that will be lined up, ready to go back to the page. But as I mentioned before, we would also have the option of going to a group. So what we might do for the sake of the exercise here, I'll just go back to this workflow. We'll edit the workflow. And let's say this time, it's all fine. Output is fine. We're going to go into a group. And let's say I wanted to go into this test group here, RM test group. We could create a workflow for that purpose. And again, we would go through a similar exercise, except on this occasion, we need to make sure that that group has one additional element. And this is the RM test group. And if I go into the group settings, edit group settings here, and go down, we need to ensure that a group, when we're working with a group, has an app attached to it. This is only relevant to groups. I haven't added this.io app to this, so I'll need to do that. So we'll add apps. That was hanging just for a moment, so I've just jumped ahead and come up. And we'll need to simply look for, spell it correctly, it'll help, the repurpose.io app, and that will be installed. We say yes, please. It's been added. So that's now ready to take instructions from repurpose, and we could post automatically into this group if we want as well. So now we've addressed Facebook, which has many different variations. We can move on. I'm now going to look at processing the video for the main Instagram feed, and I'm suggesting we opt for the square format. So what we're doing here is we're in this square section and completing this process here via. Now I'm not going to go through in detail all the steps again. What I'm going to recommend is having a look at this explainer video where we repurposed a video for Instagram TV and opted for the vertical format at that point. And the process we're following, because Instagram can't be directly connected with, it's a little bit problematic in that regard. We need to go via Dropbox or Google Drive or some interim storage solution. So we're using Dropbox here, and the steps are we repurpose to publish Facebook videos to Dropbox or Google Drive in the vertical format. It's just my recommendation. We download those videos, and then we go via the Facebook Creative Studio to publish or schedule the videos to IGT. We could have opted for the vertical format for Instagram as well at that point and used exactly the same format. I'm just suggesting we think about square from the main part of Instagram, but everything else is the same. And all we need to do in the drop down is we choose square instead of vertical for Instagram. Now, just to be clear, let's go back to the workflow that I did for Facebook to IGTV. And this part of the process, all we're doing is managing the transfer over to Dropbox before we manually download and upload through Facebook Creative Studio. So let's have a look at the settings. And all we would do in this part of the process in following that explainer video is we would choose square instead for the Instagram feed instead of the vertical for IGTV. Everything else, we'd save that and then follow the other explainer video, and we would have the main Instagram feed covered as well. We're now going to look at taking our video and transferring the audio content across to our podcast host. So let's just revisit how podcasting works. We take our podcast episode and we need to go via our podcast host because it performs a very valuable function, of course, in producing an RSS feed indicated by the orange typical RSS symbol there. And then that goes through to the podcast networks. For example, we've shown here Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and Google Podcasts. So we can create a workflow, and repurpose.io is currently integrated with Libsyn, and coming shortly is integration with Captivate.fm and podcast.co. Now, my main account is actually on Captivate, so to use it, I would need to do an interim Dropbox path where before with Instagram, and then upload into Captivate and schedule and so on from there. I can show Libsyn. I have a Libsyn account, which is currently in the automated workflows. So for that, we'll need to create a new workflow. Once again, our very familiar path here. Nominate our content, and we're going to start with the full video, but this time we're going to convert that video to audio. So it'll be a full video going, well, the audio from that video going across and going to our connected Libsyn account. Now I've just got a dummy podcast show here. It goes and sees on that host what we have to choose from to publish to, and this is just a dummy for our purposes. We'll create that workflow, and then we'll go and have a look at our videos. And of course, we've got our one primary demo video. We'll have a look at our settings. Now, there's a couple of key things here with podcasts. We would, in this case, be normally adding an intro file and an outro file. Obviously, most shows include those. They become part of the branding of that show. In this case, we'd be uploading the relevant MP3 files that will enable us to kick off the show and complete it with references to show notes and that kind of thing. So we can also look at a couple of other items here. Particularly in the early days, we might want to just publish to drop and publish, because if we choose the published option, as soon as we say yes, that will then go live across to the host. So we would normally say draft there. If it's a clean show, we might want to nominate there. We can also turn emails on, particularly in this case, because we'd want to know perhaps to broadcast the availability of this show to our audience. It's normally quite common to turn on email notifications, particularly in this situation. And I'll just save those settings. And then because I nominated draft, I can publish that and just check our settings. And we may just want to make sure this is appropriate for a podcast episode. Obviously, that's come across from the Facebook page that we set up way back at the beginning. And if that is appropriate, we can say publish now. And that will go into draft format over on Libsyn, and then we can go there, check it, and make sure that it's scheduled appropriately in Libsyn. I could have done it here as well, and there's a couple of different options there. Now, with Captivate or podcast.co, or in fact any other podcast host that doesn't have this integration, we would simply go via similar method, as I mentioned before, to what we did for Instagram via Dropbox. And we would create a workflow to Dropbox and then load it, upload it, and so on, as we did previously for Instagram. So I won't go through all that again. And that's audio podcasting. Okay, it's on podcasting. Integration with Captivate and podcast.co, Captivate.co are coming. They're not too far down the track, according to the developer. So that'll just make life a little bit easier. Also, on the map here, I mentioned 5 clips, and in the demonstration there, I referred to the full video. You have the choice. I mean, quite often, if you're doing a show, a full episode of something, but there is the option also to upload smaller segments that might be just highlighting a particular element, a particular subtopic or whatever. And so there is the facility to do that, of course. It's just another form of content, in which case we would have gone for snippets and gone through the familiar 5-segment process we've seen before. And in this case, with Libsyn already integrated, that could have just flowed through again, as we've seen before with other options. So that covers podcasting for the moment anyway. Bonus day, we're going to look at podcasting in a lot more detail for the whole session. So we'll start with an audio podcast episode rather than a video, and we'll go into this much more detail then. I'd like now to actually move on to this area up here where I'm calling it mixed, and we're talking about working with a full video in this circumstance with blogs and PDF, interesting things. So this is broken into two components. Let's go to the first part and we'll get this underway. We're now going to have a look at the top group of conversion options. And initially, this is about creating a video post and posting to our blog, as represented here. So we'll do this in two parts. We'll look at the blog side of things in the first video, and in the second video, we'll look at a number of other options that are available to us. Now, in talking about the blog, I've represented our blog by a WordPress symbol, and I'm certainly very fond of WordPress. I was coding websites before WordPress was launched in HTML in the Dreamweaver and Microsoft front page days. And I really liked those tools. But then when WordPress came along, it made life so much easier. And then shortly after being launched, a whole set of plugins started to be developed, which made life even better again. And, you know, that's great. If I had a current WordPress site for my main Resolute Media business, then I could easily demonstrate that for you. Or I could go and create a simple blog and apply the appropriate plugins and so on. To be honest, because I've been so impressed with Searchy, there's probably no need to do that, because if WordPress blog, I would still rely on a plugin to create some of the conversion work, and the developer of repurpose.io has a WordPress plugin that will take a video and make it easy to post that content on the blog. It's a paid plugin, but it does a very good job, and I'd be happy to use it. However, I don't need to. Now, my current primary sites for Resolute Media, this is the main website. This is sitting on a completely different platform entirely. It has a number of its own benefits. And so I don't use WordPress for this. And therefore, I don't have plugins and so on that are relevant in this situation. But what I'm using for this player here, and I've shown this on day 2 in looking at Searchy. This is a Searchy playlist on a player. So there's the playlist, and that's just a little code snippet. So that can be added anywhere, WordPress or not non-WordPress. And this does a very good job of not just getting a video post on the site. If I wanted to, I could wrap some additional narrative around this, just like I have on any of these pages. Just go back to the home page. So I can do anything around that post that I would like, including a more formal sort of
accessibility widget open.
That's my ADA compliance. There. So I won't demonstrate a WordPress blog in these circumstances, because part of looking at this is we're going to be talking about transcripts and so on. And I can get all of that from my Searchy player. I can simply come down here, go to my downloads, and VTT, if you haven't seen that before, that's just another version of an SRT file. It uses a different kind of formatting technique for timestamps and that kind of thing. But we could simply take a transcription text and one we prefer and download the file. We've got our transcript. So Searchy makes life a lot easier without using a whole lot of different tools. And so just going back to our requirement here, if you have a WordPress site, that's fine. I can certainly make recommendations around the plugin that's available from the Repurpose developer. And there are certainly other plugins that make life a little bit easier in creating that post. In my case, I'm going to continue to use what I have here. And this second site that I'm using, the 1 to 50 challenge, is actually, this is a Facebook page. You can't see the rest of the Facebook page around it. This is the part that sits on the Facebook page. I've just isolated the page. So it's actually sitting on Facebook, believe it or not. And people come in here, register on the front page. It magically changes using the same URL. And all of this sitting on my Facebook page. You just wouldn't know, using another piece of software, another app, specifically for Facebook. Again, you know, I've got a lot of things that I can add to this website. It's just not quite as flexible as the main one. So I'm going to leave because essentially we can create posts on a whole range of different platforms, not just WordPress. And really, it's not such a difficult task to create a video post. What is a little bit more difficult is having the right tools to take that post and easily convert it into PDFs and other formats, ebooks and so on. And that's what we'll talk about in the next video. I'd now like to address a number of these options here that I have included. And this is where we take a video and audio and turn it into a few more dynamic options, I guess, in one sense anyway, with this dynamic flipbook as one example. Now, at this point, I'm going to introduce a new tool. It's one that I've used since it was first launched some years ago, called Designer. Designer has a number of quite attractive aspects to it. If I just go to the main website, it's also in this world of content repurposing. It just has a few different angles to it than what we've been looking at so far with repurpose.io and Searchy. It also does transcripts. I'm using Searchy for most of my transcripts. The one thing that Designer does, which I'll show you in a moment, it adds screenshots out of the, let's say it's a video as the source, to the transcript. There's a few nice elements in it, and certainly having the dynamic flipbook as well means that in certain situations it might be attractive to consider Designer. It works on a credit system. What I've done, I've taken day 1 of our series and I've taken the first 10 minutes and I've had that transcribed, so we have some working material, and I could spend a half an hour on Designer, which I won't. I just wanted to give you a brief introduction to it, so that if you wanted to pursue it further, you could come to the website and check it out there. There's also one very nice integration I'll touch on between Designer and repurpose.io, and I'll come to that in a moment. So if we go into the drafts area, I've just run this first 10 minutes of day 1 through the transcriber, and it only took a few minutes to come back. So let's have a look at what the draft looks like. Now, I've not cleaned this up. This is just straight out of the system. And so it's taken those first 10 minutes, added a few nice elements here. We can edit the speaker 1. And this is particularly useful if we had 2 speakers. It'll pick up the 2 voices and start labeling them appropriately from that point forward. It's chosen some random screenshots, and you can always add an additional screenshot at some point in the transcript if we wish to. We can make some decisions as to which we want to leave in and which out, and so on. So we could clean that up and do quite a lot of additional processing to get it looking just the way that we want. So we can come down, we could save that. I'll just leave that name there for the moment. And then we could go and choose a template. Now we're going to save this as a PDF. And if we just wanted a clean transcript in PDF format, that's fine. We could just use a plain vanilla template. If we wanted to turn it into something a little bit more visually dynamic, like an ebook, then we have a very extensive range of templates to choose from. Quite a lot, depending on our preferred look and feel. Now, I'll just choose one of these at random. Really, I'm not going to spend a lot of time on this at all. Just looking for something, even this one. We'll just use that. That's fine. So then we go into our editor here, and we can tidy up the front page, change the graphics, and do a lot more with this to our heart's content, basically. Change the footer there. And I first worked with this some years ago when it was first launched. And at that point, had a number of ebooks that I was producing. This was a rewrite of a book I did with Russell Brunson back in the day. How to Get 100 Clients in 100 Days. That was the book there, .com Secrets. And so I was repurposing basically this content for a particular niche quite a while ago. And so that's one example there. So that's what we would do here, and that would give us, with a very high level of discretion around the look and feel of this, a very attractive looking ebook. And then we could take this further. If we wanted to turn this into a dynamic flipbook, that's very easy to do through this platform. Now, I won't spend a lot of time actually going through the steps. They've got dozens and dozens of excellent tutorials to help with that. But again, some years ago, I was working on a project with a partner in the UK, addressing the needs of the vet and pet industry, veterinarians and pet businesses. And I was looking after quite a lot of the digital marketing and associated with that. And I created a whole number of things. I think, yeah, I've got a flyer here. Created this from scratch. Developed a whole marketing system for the industry, a whole lot of supporting materials. And one of the things I created, a magazine. So this was a monthly magazine, essentially. And this is the flip book that I used to present that magazine back in the day. There's our system. Oops, I'm going a bit too fast there. That'll give you a taste anyway. So obviously that is going to depend on how much work's gone into the original magazine or ebook or whatever the source document is, PDF. But it's very easy to turn it into this format, which again is very visually engaging and kind of interactive. Now, flipbooks have been around for a few years. Obviously, this was done a number of years ago when I first did this, and they'd been around for a little while then. So there's another option. So essentially, Designer has a couple of extra elements beyond what we've seen so far. It does give us quite a range of options, and this takes us well past the 50, and we're really in some ways just scratching the surface of the options that are available. But I particularly like a couple of these elements. I did mention that I would talk about the integration that exists between repurpose.io and Designer. The owners and developers of both platforms have got together and found a way to pass files from one platform to the other. So if we were working in repurpose.io and we wanted to take advantage using automation of a couple of the extra elements that sit within Designer, we've looked at a couple in terms of the dynamic flipbook and ebooks and so on. then we can pass a file. So we would output from repurpose.io into Dropbox, and that would be picked up automatically by Designer. And if we wanted it to, it could transcribe if we weren't using Searchy or another facility, and take that further into the Designer system, and vice versa. If we were operating initially in Designer, but we then also wanted to syndicate that content out to other platforms in different shapes, different formats, then we could do the same via Dropbox back into repurpose.io. So both systems are quite compelling. And of course, we also have Searchy that I particularly love for the additional things that only it can do. So we've got 3 excellent tools amongst a number of options that enable us to do a significant amount with a single piece of content. So there we go. The final element here was talking about Facebook and Instagram stories. Now, I've put an intro there. I'm working on a few more powerful techniques for the stories. So what I'll do, I'll update that video in due course once we get through the busyness of this series. And then when your account is live, this page, so you can go and register your free user account for StratMapper as a platform, you'll have these strategy maps on your user account, and then I can push updates down in the account as I add more training, more resources, more ideas, more updates going forward. So this series won't stop here, be part of an ongoing set of tools and resources, and hopefully you'll find that valuable in an ongoing sense. So that's our day 3. I know the time's pressing on, so I'm not going to say too much more, but fundamentally this is where we're up to in the main roadmap for the series. So we've now traversed day 1, day 2, day 3. We have tomorrow to finish out the formal part of the curriculum, where we'll look at some really, as I say here, some stunningly powerful ways to massively multiply your brand and authority from one content piece well beyond 50 items. Now, we could have done that already with some of the options available to us, but you may recall way back at the beginning, I said that one of the things that I've probably enjoyed the most over the years is authority marketing. And I was talking about this a huge promotion, for my business that I was in the year, and that's been deferred. And now I'm actually reserving all of these services for my content repurposing private clients. I'll be a number of elements of this and why this is so powerful, and why, again, as I said in my initial remarks, why content repurposing, even though today in particular we've really dug into some of the meaty technical stuff, we're going to get up a little bit higher than that tomorrow and look at just content repurposing is important when we're starting to talk about more the broader authority marketing, authority positioning principles, and how we can take our message and get it out into the marketplace in a far more compelling way. And you may recall I said the big strategic question I was addressing through this work back at the time earlier in the year was, how do you tell your story in a way that differentiates you and your brand from everyone else in the industry? And there were a few related concepts associated with that. Now that we've explored content repurposing in some detail, particularly today, and we've looked at 3 very powerful tools to enable us to do that, I think it'll be handy now to step back a little bit and say, okay, now that we know what power is in our fingertips, how can we take that even further? How can we take the 5x or 10x power that we've now seen through the use of automation technology and get above that again and start pushing that multiple out so we can go even further? And the tools will just make it easier for us because we'll have our key messages in multiple formats, so we know they're now suitable for all these different channels. What we're going to do is see what that looks like when we really start embracing the power of brand and authority and celebrity, and access some of the networks that I associated with in recent years that enable us to align ourselves with these powerful brands. Because if we can't do that, it's very difficult for a player to be able, even with the use of these technologies, to really make an impact on a very busy and crowded marketplace, and never more, of course, than this year, with all of the competing daily news that just continues to break by the minute. We're getting a year's worth of news in a day at the moment, and so here we are. We're trying to get our message out and put our hand up and say, listen to me. And we're going to take this a big step forward, wrap up the formal part of our curriculum of the 4 days, and I'm really looking forward to sharing this experience with you, where we look at some of the more powerful tools that are available to us that I'm very keen to make available. I've been accumulating these for some years. I've got substantial resources just sitting there waiting to be applied to help people, and I've got a special surprise coming tomorrow where I'm going to make that available to some people. I'm sure you'll find that particularly interesting. So I'll see you tomorrow. Thank you for being with me to this point, and I can't wait to wrap this up tomorrow with you. See you then.